Welcome back to Cards and Comics. Today I'm in a very special place. As you can see, this is not my normal place to record videos. I'm in Washington, D.C. at the FDA, and I'm meeting with them tomorrow. So this is kind of like a unique opportunity for me to have some direct one-on-one conversations with federal agencies. So we'll see how it goes, but it's part of what I do for a living. But that's where I'm at. So kind of looking forward to it. And again, kind of unique opportunity to be here. I want to talk a little bit today. I think the title of the video is going to be something around pricing and just sort of my thoughts on it. But I'm going to give you a different little spin on it around the concept I see a lot of people talking about that, sports cards can be priced very similarly to retail goods. And I just want to explain to you why I don't feel like that model would work and why it's not the same. It's literally comparing apples and oranges. So before I get into that, like I just talked a little bit about where I'm at, a little bit of my channel update, just kind of where I'm at collecting wise, and before I get into the pricing discussion. One thing is I am getting quite a few new boxes in for my 90s box break challenge I'm working on to open up every product from the 1990s in baseball, Major League Baseball for the most part. So I'm keeping that going. I did have a tragedy the other day where my checklist got corrupted. I was working off of. I spent many months putting that together. So now I'm having to recreate my checklist, go through all my videos again, all the boxes I've opened. So a lot of hours of work there kind of down the drain. And it happened when I converted over to the new version of Microsoft Office. I don't know what happened there, but can't recover it. So that, was an IT failure on my part. And just want to kind of, just say thank you to the subscribers and everyone who's gone on my channel. I am, very excited about continuing on in this YouTube journey. Now on to pricing. So there are many videos in the YouTube sports card area around how to price cards. Are price cards too high? Price cards too low? Pricing made easy? Pricing. It's a big deal in the hobby on how to price sports cards. And then there is the Jeff Wilson video where he talks about, his plan for pricing. And so I'll start off right off the bat here and just talk about, what Jeff is talking about in this video that Neo put out there. I have no problem with someone setting a price and saying that's my price. That's fine. That's not really the issue I'm going to bring up here. The idea though that the prices aren't fungible is where I'm going to really, draw some negative, thoughts about, what Jeff, or just any card shop and how they operate. If this is going to be their kind of idea, it's like, prices aren't fungible, prices aren't real. Well, I'm going to say right off the bat, sports card pricing is not real. It's not a real thing. It doesn't have the same things that you would normally use to create a value estimation and pricing for consumer goods. So that's sort of what I want to talk about is the difference between sports cards and consumer goods or things you would buy at a store like clothing, food, electronics, consumer goods. So, I work for a consumer good company. I have my entire life for the most part. And, doing all kinds of work, around the food safety and quality. But I do work a lot with retail sales. I do work a lot with customers. I do go to retailers like Walmart and Target and visit them, talk to them. I understand what P&Ls are. I understand margins, and I have to kind of understand these things to be in the position I'm in. What I'm going to talk about today is that the difference between selling a box of cards and selling the singles is enormous in how the pricing gets established. So the first thing I want to talk about is that when a consumer good company sells something to a retailer, there is a lot of fixed things that go into the pricing model. there is the cost to make the good. There's the shipping, receiving. There's different margin levels. We use in our company GM3, which is all cost minus shipping, warehousing, right? So that's the model that we use to look at margin. That takes into account, again, overhead, the cost of goods, all the things that you would put into normal margins to make the product. We have a targeted margin for our products, and then the retailer has margin as well. So when you get into it, let's just use a simple example that, if I sell something to a retailer at $1, then they take 25% of it and we take 25% of it. So that product should cost less than 50 cents to basically, make the margins for each person, and it makes sense financially, right? That when you financially model it out. That is what normally happens in CPG, consumer goods, that you have a contracted and a negotiated term for how much margin you're making and how much they're making. Now, they don't really know your margin as well. They know their margin, but in general, most CPG companies that selling products are in that 25 to 45% margin. And there's some other, areas of margin that's much higher. I think soda, some of these very cheap to make, but sell at good value, perfume, those things that probably have much higher margins. But I don't work in those categories, so I don't know exactly what their P&L looks like. But let's say, for just this video, because I have worked in areas where this was the model, 25 and 25. So based on that, your pricing is set because you've negotiated how much your product is going to be sold to them. There's a price list. It's set in stone. It says how much you're going to be billed and how much you're going to bill them. And then, there is their margin, our margin that gets taken off the top. Our margin gets back to us, through what they pay. They take their margin off the top. That's how it's done. There is no ability for the retailer to really change pricing once that's been negotiated and determined. The only thing that changes pricing, because I'm sure everyone's going like, well, the pricing changes all the time. Like, what are you talking about? Well, look, there's sales and there's deals and things like that happen through trade spending. So throughout the year, and this is again negotiated, companies will say, I will give you X amount of dollars to run promotions and sales on our products to drive volume into our category, to drive volume into your store. And company or retailers have programs that they put in place, retail programs like the couponing programs that they want funded. So as you look at getting into these companies and working with them, you have to know that some companies are very expensive to work with because they want lots of trade spending. They want you to not only give them that 25% margin, they want you to drive customers in their store by you giving them money off the top. You could look at trade spending as basically, a slush fund. You can view it as a bribe in some cases to get your products on the shelf. Now, one thing to think about too is companies that are brand new on the market. A lot of retailers love those guys, and you'll see why do some of these little companies get on the shelf? It's because those companies negotiate a much higher retail margin. They say, Walmart, I know we're new, you never heard of us, but we'll give you a 50% margin. We'll give you 70%, whatever it takes to get the product on the shelf. And other companies like Kroger, they require slotting. Walmart's a non-slotting customer. They look for everyday low price. They want to negotiate a trade. You get to the Krogers of the world. They want you to pay $5,000 or $10,000 per SKU to get it in the store. So it's basically being bribed on both ends. You have to give them trade and you have to give them money just to get your product in the store. Because they're like, I don't care if your product sells or not. I got my $10,000, my $5,000 per SKU. I don't care. So that's how retail really works. And so the thing we should be asking ourselves isn't, why doesn't a single card have that same pricing structure? Because there is no overhead or margin in that one single card. It was in the box it came from. The pricing model for the singles is based on consumer whims, very nebulous, market, let's say trends. It can be manipulated very easily. All those things make pricing of singles very fungible, and I call it not real. It's a lot of times it's just made up, and you can charge whatever you want. But you have to recognize when someone goes to your store or to your table or anywhere with sports cards and says, I don't think your price is right, you can't just be like, well, my price is perfect, it's always right. It is very difficult to determine the price of sports cards or the price of any collectible once it's outside of that original retail setting, because there is no mathematical equation of overhead, labor cost, there is no retail margin that you're working off that's a guaranteed, that's negotiated, that everyone's going to walk away with. There's no trade spinning. There's none of that. You just have a card, and you have to determine based on, averages of averages what you think that price is worth. You could be high, you could be low, whatever it is. And so that's really what I was going to say about Jeff's, video, is that when he was saying stuff like, well, if I'm like 2% high or low or $2 off, I'm not going to negotiate. I'm not, and he says that's because it's going to help grandmothers because they come in, they don't want to negotiate. We shouldn't have negotiations. It's fine to not want to negotiate. But when you go into a card shop and someone is overpriced, and he said that, he would look at it in some cases, but asking $5 off or say, hey, the last card sold was $5 lower, would you take $5 off a, let's call it $1,000 card. Are you really going to lose a sale, over $5? And he mentioned wanting to turn his inventory over in 30 days, right? Which to me, of all the fanciful, crazy stuff that he mentioned, that was the biggest one, was turning over your entire inventory in 30 days in sports cards. You better be buying really fast moving stuff, because he said, we'll just auction it off. Well, okay. Be prepared to probably take a bath, because, a lot of dealers will tell you, or card shop owners will tell you, is like they hold on to inventory because they know that eventually it will sell. But if they sell it, at a later, on eBay, they might. It's like I said, it's fungible. You don't know what you're going to get, right? It's hard to run a business when you don't know what your card's going to sell for. And I'm sure he's banking on the fact that Whatnot and some of these other, areas, he can get more for the cards than, let's say, me. I'm Joe Schmo, but I'm Cards HQ. I'm Jeff Wilson. I get a better margin, or I get more money for my cards because people want to buy from a hobby celebrity, so to speak. Okay, that might work, but I'm just saying, like, most businesses would not sign up for the idea that to turn my inventory over in 30 days, I got to have X percentage of it go to auction, to where you don't know what your margin is going to get, right? If you sell it in your store, you can stick to a certain margin, let's say range that will allow you to predict what your net revenue is going to be on a monthly basis. I think that is where I would just say, like, from a business side of it, I just don't know how that's going to work. I think that's the biggest wild card. Not the fact he's not going to negotiate. It's the fact that he's going to turn that inventory over in 30 days by using auctions and other platforms, to which he has no guarantee of return on his investment. That's just, to me, a little wild. The other thing too is, again, the idea you would lose a $1,000 sale over $5. I think maybe he just overstated that. So I'm gonna say, I think maybe in a lot of cases he'd be like, yeah, I'll take $5 off, $10 off. You're not really negotiating. You're not saying, like, I want 60% or something. Where you're really trying to land some sort of weird percentage based on all these comps, and you're having to use your calculator on your phone, which is annoying at card shows. I do think the comp guys who just, I use this comp, I use this, and you have to, like, argue over whose comp's the most compy. That is, it is annoying. I don't disagree with that. And the last thing I want to talk about is, on this idea of retail versus singles, right? Let's get back to sports cards retail. Why are we not upset over the fact that these companies that are making these products, they know how much it costs to make, what they want to target for a margin. They have a suggested retail price. Why on earth are they allowing everyone post sale, their customers, to just be able to charge whatever they want? They're really stringent about when you can open the product, but they are not stringent at all on what the secondary market should be charging for these products. That is the number one way that you ruin customer relationships with a retailer. Why do you think Walmart wants an everyday low price? Because they know they'll get more customers coming into the store if things are priced in a very normal way. If a company, if a Walmart in one city prices things much lower than another, that's going to drive volume to that store. They don't want that. They want things to be equal across stores. They also don't want one store to price everything really high, and then that store just loses all its sales. I mean, there's ways to price things in a retail world that's it's standard. I don't understand why we've allowed the wax box pricing direct to the retailer from the manufacturer to basically be the Wild West, to have no controls on it. I hear more complaining about Blowout for being too cheap by the breakers because they don't allow us, or they set the price and all this other BS. Look, Fanatic should be setting the price. They should say, per our retail agreement, you have to sell within this framework that's negotiated to you. Either standard deal, whatever framework they're going to come up with, and it has to stay that way for a certain amount of time. Allowing people to do what they're doing today is going to be, the death of some of these platforms and hobbies, or hobbyists, because this is how you burn people and get people to just quit. It's because every time one product has something in it that's cool, that people like, all that's going to happen is it's going to double, triple, and quadruple in price, and no one can afford it except for a few people. And everyone's just going to be like, well, this sucks. Like, every time something is cool that comes out, the pricing structure is just so god-awful that I'm just going to buy singles, and we know singles that can be manipulated as it has been in the past. And so it just creates this idea that price in the hobby is just crazy. And so I appreciate the fact Jeff wants to get rid of some of the craziness, but I don't think he's really targeting the right spot. We should be targeting keeping, wax or retail products at standard cost, even hobby products, standard cost for a certain amount of time. And then the fungible aspect of these singles need to be dealt with in a way that Jeff is doing some work there, but I think it needs to be a little more nuanced than just, hey, I'm never going to negotiate or take any price off or change my pricing. So, but that's sort of my thoughts on it. Why I think there is some good there, but a lot of it's crazy, in my opinion, especially that 30-day turnover. I'd like to see how that works. It could make or break, whether or not his whole model works, right? So that's what I think, guys. Again, in DC, and kind of do it at a different spot. Hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll see you next time on Cards and Comics. Bye.